I've never done this, but I thought, you know what? I want to do a history of revival in the United States. Just learn about it. And I learned a couple of things. Number one, revival does not happen that often. It's actually very rare. And when it happens, it usually doesn't even last that long. When there's true revival, there is deep repentance on the Christians. Only Christians, by the way, that once were on fire for the Lord, that once were revived, they're the ones that can experience revival. Like you have to, in order to rebuild, that implies that you built to begin with, and then you're rebuilding. If I told you I'm revisiting someone, what does that mean? I already visited them. I'm going to revisit them. Revival means that you once were on fire for the Lord. Now, I point that out because some of you never have been revived to begin with. From the day you got saved, you've been lukewarm. So for you, I'm challenging you not to revival. I'm challenging you to get revived. Okay? Then next year, you can get revived. All right. So I want to preach on revival. So I did a history. When you have revival, there's repentance, there's brokenness, and there is a desire to share your faith. And people come to the Lord. So here's the history of the major revivals in the USA. And there's not a lot of them. So from 1730 to 1740, so it was 10 years. That's pretty long for a revival. In fact, this has probably been the greatest revival this land ever experienced, because as you see, it affected what percentage of the population in the United States? Well, this is before the United States. In America, 80%. We have never seen anything like this before. 80%. Of course, most of the country were believers, and so they, experienced a personal revival. And it is from this revival, by the way, that all the Christians said, you know what? The Church of England has compromised. We want the freedom to worship God according to the Word. And so that's what led to us becoming a nation in 1776. But it was that, and that's why most of the founding fathers were solid Christians and wrote Christian principles, because of the most significant revival that we've ever seen. Nothing like this will probably ever happen again, because the fact of the matter is maybe only 20% at the most of the United States are Christians, true Christians today. So at the most, if you had a revival and every Christian was repenting and being filled again with the Spirit, you would only have a 20% revival. You would never have an 80% like that. Next revival, almost 100 years later, there was a stock market crash. There was a financial panic in the country. A prayer revival happened in New York City that spread, and 1 million came to know the Lord. In 1906, there was a revival. This was a charismatic revival in L.A. In 1945 to 1950, there was a post-World War II revival. All the men and women that came back from experiencing hell over in Europe and in the Pacific with Japan. When you are in a war, when you experience 60 million people being killed, when you know there's now a heaven, there's a hell, there's a devil, a great revival broke out among the returning soldiers, and Billy Graham was one of the main revivalists at that time, and 3 million Americans came to the Lord. 1966 to 1979 was the Jesus movement, and this is the movement that I met the Lord in 1977, and 2 million got saved. 1995 to 2000, there was the Brownsville revival down in Florida. Now, I have to tell you that after almost every revivals, they come off into a crashing end. Satan hates revival, and he causes all kinds of trouble. Even this revival that we're going to read now in 1 Kings 18, after this great revival, Elijah runs for his life. Jezebel is on the warpath. And the Brownsville revival, that church was small. It grew to tens of thousands. Satan attacked. He attacked the Christians, the leadership, the pastors. And today, 26 years later, it's a gigantic church with 200 people in it and $10 million in debt. 2023 was the Asbury revival in Asbury, Kentucky. It lasted 16 days, student-led. It was unique in that it didn't have preaching. It was more music-led. People are debating whether this was a true revival or not. Only 200 people got saved. Only 60,000 were affected. Now, there was some online. And I'll just say, for those who went, those that experienced it, there was a revival of so many people. What I do want you to notice is that we go from 80% of the country having revival and millions coming to the Lord, millions, then to hundreds of thousands, then down to 200. And becoming nationwide to a couple states, to a town. In Asbury, they have surveyed all the churches around. They said there's no impact on our church. We didn't get any lost people, and our churches didn't grow. We saw no significant change. So it's so there's the history of revival for our country. Nevertheless, though I cannot control if our country is going to have a countrywide revival, I do believe that as a local church, that we can have revival. To me, it doesn't matter. In some sense, I would love if the country had a revival, but I'm not waiting around. But we can have a revival service. Do we need revival? Do I need revival? In the old days, for like the first 20 years of my ministry, you would have revivalists come to your church to preach revival once a year for Christians to get revived for the Lord. And in fact, like 30 years ago, Pastor Cope had me here for a week preaching revival services in this church. So it's kind of funny that here I am 30 years later.